Michelle's been on this star-studded panel 3 different times and crushed it. I think she's been the star of every single show. So I've been begging her, can you please, please, please present for our Trans4mers group? And she finally said, yes, I will. I think I wore her down over time, right, Michelle?
Yeah, and I like to say that I'm kind of a breakout. I'm kind of Beyonce now.
So let's please welcome Michelle Hyde, and she'll introduce herself and what she does, but a great friend, a brilliant sales visionary. And I asked her to speak about how do you punch above your weight? If you have a smaller organization, how do you look big? How do you sell huge accounts when you're just a few people? And she's going to talk about that today.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate everybody. And I've had acquaintance with a few of you on this group. So I'm super excited to be here today. So thank you for having me. And a little bit about Hyde Group. I am a consultancy out in Seattle, Washington. It's me, myself, and I, and when the cat wants to show up. But I do have a business partner that I took on in the last couple of years, solution architect by trade, a database administrator, and he is amazing, technically sound. And so between my strategic approach and his technical acuity, we make an amazing partnership. And we have increased our pipeline probably almost 10x since we came together, and which is really, really an exciting thing to see. We really have a focus on enterprise level organizations. Most of our customers are between 100 and 600 million in annual revenues. And that's our target market. They are going through an evolution or a change in some way, a lot of digital transformation and a lot of cloud migration. And of course, with the pandemic in the last 2 years, everything has changed, everything is sped up. And those transitions have been fast and furious and frequent. So we've been just working around the clock on some of these client endeavors to get them to where they need to be. Most of our acuity is in the security space, business continuity, disaster recovery, and security. And this has become the conversation for most enterprise organizations, where they're just grappling with the onslaught of millions of different attack fronts in the security realm. And so we like to go in and work with clients across multiple departments to understand what happens in the event of an event. What does your company do? And so with that, I definitely want to bring in my topic of discussion today, which is really that selling ecosystem and why that matters. I'm a small organization, but I play big in terms of having resources globally that are very vetted, very exceptional at what they do. And I am a very good listener when it comes to my clientele. So, it's really about creating partnerships, a community, and that the business model of examination, buying, and consumption has completely and radically overhauled, not only in the last 2 years, but in the last 4 to 5 years, where the people are doing research and recon and pre-buying, if you will, almost going to proof of concept before they're making and engaging buying decisions and engaging personnel like me as that trusted advisor. They want to just kind of validate what they've discovered. So the selling ecosystem in today's world is super key, is super essential, and it's just a way to create influence in your marketplace. So with that, I may pause to see if there's any questions that I can answer in reference to the selling ecosystem. But it's really not about product positioning any longer. It is about really understanding the client's drivers on a whole bunch of different levels and cross-departmentally, and understanding that even though you may be positioning your services or your products in with an organization, there are going to be 40 other adjacent sellers that are also aligning with those executive teams. They're trying to also sell, they're trying to get the mind share, they're trying to obtain the dollars for those type of sales. And so with that, you really, really need to understand and play nice in the sandbox with one another, and ideally bring those partner companies in. If the client has an adjacent need in HRMS systems, for instance, managed HR systems, and you don't do that, you better know somebody who does. You better bring those resources in, and you better have them fully vetted that they are true professionals and can do what they can do, and that you understand your interplay of your product, your service, in with the adjacent services that are going to be feeding into a lot of these dependencies.
Michelle, I know there's a question a lot of people are going to have, and that's how do you get a seat at the table for these 100 to $600 million companies? Is that your adjacencies bring you in, or how do you get those appointments?
I call this for me over the last, so I've run my business now for 12 years. And for me, it has been what I call sales nirvana, which is a referral-based business. Everything that I do, in fact, I had to do a dissection just about 2 months ago on my entire base, where those opportunities came from, making sure that I had all the metrics I needed to have on my database. And how they've grown over time. But almost every single one of them, I think it was something like 96% of the opportunities that I have received have been from referral-based business. It is either an existing customer that moved and took me with them to their new endeavor. It was these sales partners that I co-sell with on a global basis that have said, you know what, I don't know that answer, but let me introduce you to Michelle because she knows people in that space. And so I've had those introductions. It's about keeping a great reputation, that you are good at follow through, that you are good at connecting, that you are good at having an answer to something, or at least willing to do the legwork on behalf of a prospect or customer so that it eases their mind, eases their time. They may not have the resources or knowledge base on where to even begin in that endeavor. So it's definitely a referral-based business for me.
Thank you.
So when I think about why this matters in terms of your sales ecosystem, there's two reasons. One is your business and your customer's business, right? Your business is that I'm a trusted advisor. I'm kind of agnostic, if you will, in terms of what I sell, how I sell. I follow the lead of the client, meeting them where they're at. I know that's an overused phrase at this juncture, but it really is true. It's not about, hey, I'm coming in, I'm going to sell you something, and you're going to listen and you're going to buy. It's no longer a case of that. It is a case of what are you grappling with? Oh, is it personnel? Is it HR? Is it your leases? Is it legal? Is it politics internally? All those things have to be ironed out in order for you to have a successful selling experience in there. And it really does depend on these community of people that you surround yourself with. So it's very impactful to your business to be able to say, I know these people on either side of this that you need to know, and will make this streamlined process for buying, for employing, for deploying, for evolving. So that is important reputationally for you as a seller, and then for the client, having access to all these different resources that you're, I won't say puppeteering, but there's a little marionette going on in this, where you are facilitating those conversations and those introductions, and super key. It's super imperative.
Michelle, did you do this with intentionality, or did you kind of back into it, kind of just?
Well, there is definitely, as a single shingle, right? I cut out on my own. I was postpartum, so that was probably the issue. I didn't have all my faculties. I'm like, I'm going to start a business. And then I realized I need people. I can't do this alone. I need people. My client is asking for a certain set of things that I kind of know, but I certainly know people that are really deep in there and in that subject line. And so I'll bring those people in, and I'm co-selling with them. They loved it because I'm bringing people in, and they're getting a seat at the table. And I love it because they make me look good, and I look like I look like a facilitator. I am a coordinator with people.
Michelle, do dollars change hands, or do you just do this on a kind of a quid pro quo basis?
Well, as I started, it was a quid pro quo, but it was really more of a, can you please come in and save my ass? Sales call. And that the idea of getting paid on such a beast was not there. But since it has definitely had a mutual aspect to it, where I will definitely coordinate those folks in. I do ask for a percentage override depending on how I'm compensated by the client. I have two sides of my business. One is time and materials, where I do scopes of work, and I will work for $10, $20, $40,000 engagement, and then to kick those type of conversations off and do the fact-finding mission and requirements gathering efforts. And then I also have the, for lack of a better example, brokering side, where I will product position or bring in platforms and services, and then I will reimburse in part or full that original statement of work. So it works out very favorable. But I definitely cover my time. My time is absolutely valuable. The work that I do is absolutely essential for my client. And so the notion of free is out of my vocabulary and in the rearview mirror by many, by now a couple decades. So I do want to give an example of kind of punching beyond punching above my weight, as you had indicated, Mike, about a client that I took on about 5 years ago. It was very simple. The client was moving away from an MPLS, global MPLS network. They wanted to take a look at doing something different. So we examined a whole bunch of different IPVPNs and SASE type services at the time. And SASE was young. If you are familiar with the Service Edge service offering, it was young. It wasn't fully baked. It wasn't fully thought out, and it was very expensive. So it wasn't something that we seriously considered at that time 5 years ago. But working with a client on a global basis, and really understanding their environment, we ended up ripping out the MPLS and bringing in an IPVPN, fully managed BGP environment for the client. They learned a lot during this process, and it was victorious at the time. We're now looking at much more of a SASE environment, but this catapulted not only examination of a service, but it also allowed me to have executive access to understand what they're trying to achieve on a global basis, how they were scaling, and within the last 18 months, this client has gone from 320 million to 770 million in annual revenues. So they have, in effect, doubled in the last 18 months. So they were one of the winners in the COVID crisis here. And during that process, of course, they had the same situation of having to work from home, having to accelerate environments and contact centers, call centers. And by being that mainstay, by bringing in a whole host and a litany of different service options and suppliers, consultants, just advisors generally beyond myself, was a true win. And then on top of that, they also went through a breach, right? They were a manufacturing company, so they were in the process of also building 2 new manufacturing plants that we brought online, and then did co-packing with 2 other organizations as well. So to be able to fuel that growth that they were experiencing, but being part of all those conversations and the trials that they were impacted by with personnel. I heard a story just 2 weeks ago from my client that said, we've extended to 5 different people security position. Security, it was just shy of it was like a security officer type of role. 5 people accepted and 5 people ended up declining that offer because they were taking $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 more after they got their offer from my client. So it's interesting to hear about the various trials, and it's really important to have those. It's like making friends with your client. You need to know what's going on in their personal life. You need to know that they're having trouble hiring, they're having trouble expanding. And being able to facilitate that is super, super essential. Whether if you know co-packers that are in Chicago area, I want to know about them because my client has a need. But I put those kind of conversations out there with everybody I talk to. So they can say, you know what, I have people that you should know, especially since you're calling on that vertical or because you have a client with a particular issue. I mean, you're going to find that when you open up that conversation, that all of a sudden your neighbor who was, the partner at the legal firm in downtown, Chicago, becomes now an asset to you when your client has a need for such a thing. Like that just happened last week as well, where plugging in these people in, always be listening and creating this ecosystem for yourself and for your, more so for your clientele.
Okay.
But being able to punch back.
Michelle, this is awesome. We've got time for maybe one question. I'm going to pop open the chat window. You can see Michelle's got kind of a lot of game here about building a network. Let's somebody pop a question in for Michelle before she heads off. I know you're, what's something top of mind based on what Michelle said?
Don't be shy.
Okay, if I don't see anything, I'm just going to ask you if you had a word of wisdom here. So most of the people here, Michelle, have their own kind of organizations and larger ones. So they're not sole practitioners, and perhaps, but I do think they can use the ideas that you're talking about themselves to build their own mini ecosystems. I'm fascinated with your 40 kind of adjacent suppliers. And I preach that all the time as well, that the same people you're trying to get in, there are 40 other sales managers flogging their salespeople to get in and do it. And you can just network with those people. And that's, to me, so much easier than picking up the phone and calling people, getting ushered in as you are, right? When's the last time you made a cold call?
It wasn't too long ago, actually.
Really?
I try to do this on a regular basis because it keeps me sharp.
Okay.
And so I'm still doing it.
Okay, well, wrap up and put yourself in the shoes of the people at this table. So these are technology resellers like you are.
Yep.
We have some managed service providers. We have some telecom people like yourself. We have some technology people, but they're all in IT in some way. What's your final word of wisdom for the group?
Twofold. One is think larger than your product. It's not about product positioning any longer, and people buying this, in a vacuum. They're not there to buy copiers any longer, right? Whether you want to call them document handlers and put them on the network or not, they're not buying that. They are taking a look at this in a much larger ecosystem, and it's like a cog in a wheel. You have to understand that. Make sure that you understand the cogs that are adjacent to you and be able to network and bring in those resources. I call them four-legged sales calls, but reality is probably 80-leg sales calls that you should really know who is around you and selling to your same title and the business impacts that they're having that will impact yours favorably and unfavorably. So it's really important to kind of look larger than having blinders on. And to just, I would not shy away from thinking that they're competitors. They're adjacencies at this point, and you have to embrace them. It's how the world is getting things done, how clients and enterprises are getting things done. They really have multiple facets, and you need to know about all those facets, and you'd be able to work your magic in facilitating all those facets as well.
I think, reading between the lines, Michelle, we'll just wrap this up. I think your superpower is maybe not the one you think you have, but you're very observant and you have kind of X-ray vision for what the customers, you see the world through the customer's eyes. And that's why you see this. I'll tell you kind of a quick example. I preach this to salespeople all the time, is to look for opportunities that you can use to help develop a referral network. And so I was having a conversation with one of the companies on this call. I won't name him out, but I was asking about his opportunities he was sharing with me. And I said, well, who did you find out that you can give a referral to? He says, I don't have any. I said, I thought you just told me that there was a church that was moving. He says, yeah. I said, okay, you've got a referral for a moving company. You have a referral probably for a managed print company. You have a referral for office furniture. You've got 10 referrals in that move and you don't see it. But I'm guessing Michelle sees it. Other people don't. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah. And it's through real deep questioning with clientele. I mean, that is, Mike, you kind of described like being able to see around corners but the reality is it's about listening, it's about hearing, and it's about going far and wide within an organization. It's not just calling on the CISO or it just on the IT side. It's about understanding what the CEO is grappling with, what the CFO is grappling with, what operations is grappling with, distribution is grappling with, marketing. It doesn't matter. All those different facets have needs, and they are all interplayed in an organization. So best that you know it all.